Welcome to 60 Minutes of Unscripted .NET Entertainment. As doctors of .NET, we prescribe healthy choices in .NET despite our crushing amount of .NET medical school student loan debt. I'm your host, Cam Soper, with co-hosts David Pine and Myra Wenzel.
Hello.
We're here with today's guest, Vahid Farahmandian. Please introduce yourself, Vahid, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. First of all, please let me say Happy Nowruz, and may each day after New Year bring happiness, good cheer, and a sweet surprise to you and all your dear ones. Nowruz is the first day of the Jalalian year for Iranians and all the people who celebrate this event. Congratulations. My name is Vahid Farahmandian, with around 60 years hands-on experience working in Microsoft Tech Stack. Tonight, I'm here to talk about the IMAS project, what we did, what we are doing, and what we're going to do in the future. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Oh, cool! This sounds like an interesting topic. So, David, do you have a checkup for us?
I do, indeed.
All right, let's do it.
So for today's checkup doc, we're going to be focusing on Azure pipelines. If you're unfamiliar with Azure pipelines, it's some tooling available to consumers of .NET and Azure to build, test, and deploy your apps. You can do so with .NET Core, .NET Framework, all the various bits. So this article today focuses on doing just that. So you get to specify your build environment. So we've got VM images available, Ubuntu. You can configure all the various requirements, the SDK to install, and then you can restore your dependencies. So imagine you've got the giant .NET ecosystem and application. You're going to have a build environment. You're going to, restore your dependencies. You're going to build your project, and it's all YAML based. In all honesty, I'm not a big fan of YAML. I am kind of somewhat objectively opposed to it, but it's everyone has their opinion.
So David.
Yes.
On that note, on the YAML note.
Yeah.
So you remember a few weeks ago we had Bogdan come on and talk about Home Assistant.
Yeah.
And you remember there was a lot of YAML involved in configuring all that stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I installed Home Assistant. I'm running it in a container now, and I am living the YAML life.
Well, so I had learned something somewhat interesting too. As an aside, I had learned that JSON is actually YAML is actually a superset of JSON. So any valid JSON is also valid YAML. So you could say .ymal or YML and have JSON in there for the actual content, and it would work.
Right. That's pretty cool.
So that's, yeah. But anyways, so we're going to build our project. We're going to restore things. We're going to configure it with YAML, which is our favorite language. We're going to run tests. I love that comment. You can actually collect code coverage too, which is awesome. If you're unfamiliar with code coverage, so once you're a good developer and you're authoring tests and verifying that your code functions the way you'd like, code coverage is the concept behind kind of ensuring that all the different branches of your code, like what percentage of that is actually covered and accounted for as part of a unit test, which is somewhat impactful. So you can collect that various code coverage information and report on it and look at it, and you can use various code coverage metrics, and you can do this all with .NET 5 or .NET Core. You can then package and deliver your code once you've verified that it works correctly, and then you can deploy that. So this article walks you through all the various moving parts and kind of from a higher level conceptual aspect of it, right? You got all these various little steps. Once you know how to do all that and you compose it with your YAML files, you're off to the races. And I think it's relevant to today's discussion with the ERP system that Vahid and his team have built.
Cool.
And we have been transforming all of our website pipelines from the classic pipeline to YAML. So I'm in this world right now.
And do you like working with YAML? Is it fun?
I have to use it, right?
So seriously, I just don't understand how anybody thinks that white space in a data format is that, like significant white space is a good idea. I don't find significant white space to be a good idea at all.
It's only significant once you make it so, right? Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Well, yeah, that's the article. Check it out. Enjoy. And if you see issues with it, or if you want to help us improve it, if there's, if you're consuming this or have looked at that document before, by all means, we're open to external contributions. We would love your feedback on that. So thank you.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
that sounds great. Let's move on to a hallway track then. So, Vahid, you are the lead developer, I guess, the architect of the Middle East's largest maritime ERP system. Is that right?
Yeah, in fact, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of the IMAS project.
Chief CTO. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm the CTO of this project in Austrian company in Iran. If you mind, we can start the presentation and dive into the discussion.
By all means. Yep.
Please go ahead and share your screen. I think I accidentally unshared it during one of our transitions.
Okay.
And then at any time for our attendees today, if you have questions for Vahid, feel free to post them here in chat, and we'll be sure to get to them. Thank you.
Okay, great. Tonight, we're going to talk about the IMAS project, IMAS or Integrated Maritime Administration System, which is built on top of the Microsoft Tech Stack. Tonight, we'll cover these contents. First of all, we'll talk about the IMAS itself. What's IMAS? Technologies we have used, LabHand and Jinget, our frameworks, one for Data frameworks and the other for Data 4. After that, we'll have some fun with the Jinget framework and take a look at its code. Then we'll talk about the database concerns that we had, and we talk about how we solve them too, about our application server concerns. We'll talk about the role of Azure DevOps and how it solves many of our problems. Then we'll talk about the other technologies, some of them out of the Microsoft stack that we have used, we're using, or we might use in the future. And at the end, we'll talk about the lessons we have learned during this road to building the IMAS ERP.
Vahid, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you please try reconnecting your mic one more time, like we did pre-show? With our viewers are experiencing some of that background noise.
Oh, I think
is it okay?
That's so much better.
Great. Great. Okay, let's close.
And just FYI, you are literally getting love from our viewers right now. They are overjoyed.
Okay, is that okay?
yes.
It's perfect.
That's awesome. Yeah, so much better.
Okay, that's good. Actually, when we're talking about the IMAS, we're talking about the 9 systems that are integrated into each other and create and design a main process of the maritime organization of Iran's business processes. Subsystems such as entrance and exit, which is responsible for vessels entering to port and exiting from port operations. Port status control, which is responsible for inspection processes. Communication, which is responsible for its name is clear. It's for communicating it. Salvation. Every vessel in the sea might have an accident, so we should have a process. We should have some processes to handle them. Vessel registration, to register new vessels, to register their certificates, and so on. Seafarer section, that's responsible for seaman's operations. Reports that generates the reports for whole system. Environment, responsible for the pollution and environmental issues that every vessel can make. and the maritime safety subsystem. When we're talking about the IMAS, in fact, we're talking about these 9 subsystems. Actually, the IMAS has some external and internal actors and users. Some of them are located inside the ports and maritime organizations and its ports, which is in Iran, it's about 52 ports that are using the IMAS. Also, the foreign ports and PM organizations, such as the, the Hamburg port, the Dubai port, and the Abu Dhabi port. Shipping agents. Yes.
Sorry, real quick. We did have one question. One of our viewers is asking, what is the abbreviation IMAS? IMAS.
Okay. IMAS is Integrated Maritime Administration System. I will write it here. Integrated.
I love it. You're updating the slide deck in real time. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yes. Done. Okay, Integrated Maritime Administration System. Yes, the shipping agencies and trading companies are the other users of IMAS. Presidential administrations in Iran, oil refinery distribution company is one of the main users of the IMAS as an external users, and anti-trafficking headquarters, which are auditing and monitoring the processes. These users, in some cases, provide data for IMAS, and in some cases, they use the data created by IMAS. I mean, the connection between IMAS and its users are a bidirectional connection. But tonight, I'm not going to talk about the ERP or what's ERP or its benefits or so on. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the technological aspects of the IMAS that we are using, and we're planning to use in the future. The first edition of IMAS was made of these grayscale technologies. In front end, we use AngularJS plus TypeScript and ASP.NET Razor Pages. In backend, we were using Dalton Framework 4.5 plus our main programming language was C#. We use MSMQ for logging or connecting the subsystem to each other. We also provide REST APIs from backends to our front end, and we also have some swap web services, WCF services, and so on. We have 2 main databases, SQL Server databases and Oracle databases. Oracle was responsible for our BPMS, and SQL Server was responsible for storing our main data. And in application layer, we had IIS and Apache, IIS for hosting the IMAS itself and Apache for hosting its BPMS. But today, we have changed this tech stack a little bit, and we added Angular 7 to front end, and also we upgraded Dalton Framework 4.5 to 4.7, and also we included the .NET Core 3.1, and other technologies was in place. We also removed the use of Oracle databases, and we're now totally working with SQL Server databases. And the application layer, we're using IIS plus application request routing for our load balancing and creating our web farms.
Out of curiosity, Vahid, with your front end, I see like there's this evolution from using AngularJS and then now Angular 7. Are you using both still in conjunction? Are there multiple, front ends, or is it a single front end that's unified and then using different parts and kind of building out from there?
Currently, we are moving from AngularJS to Angular 7. Some of those subsystems that I talked about them are using AngularJS, and some other using Angular 7. We are at the middle of the road of migration. And we're going to remove the AngularJS totally from our front end, and we're migrate to the Angular 7. And in the next slide, I will say the future of the IMAS that we're going to. Yes, today, and at the present place, we're using both, but not at the same place, at different subsystems.
Right. And then go ahead.
I was going to say I have a similar question then about what's going on with the .NET framework and .NET Core running side by side on your back end. Is that a similar situation there?
Yeah. Their story is the same about the .NET framework and .NET Core. Some subsystems have migrated to the .NET Core, and the others haven't migrated, and we're planning to migrate them in the near future.
And I've got a question now for you then. So looking at the evolution of this app, because these are great examples. I actually love these types of applications because you actually get to see the evolution of the app, right? As it's going from, various technologies. So Google's AngularJS now is Angular 7, and you have different little front ends and you're upgrading each of those incrementally. Same thing with .NET. At one point you were on framework 4.5, then you've upgraded to 4.7, and now .NET Core 3.1, which is the latest LTS. With that said, and be completely honest, what has been some of the pain points in upgrading? Is it just the amount of time it takes? Is there any difficulties? Like, what are some of those hurdles?
First of all, I really believe in the iterative incremental process of developing a software. And I think we should take small steps toward this success. That's why that's where our evolution are placed in like this picture. About the pains that we had or we are having currently, one of our main pains is the customers. As you know, when the system is operational, the end user persists on the change, and they really do not have a good idea about the downtimes or something like that. Nowadays we have automated everything using Azure DevOps, but prior to today or nowadays, we do not have any staging environment, which was very, very painful for our customers. I mean, when we upgrade from one technology to the other technology, we produce many errors that made our customers really angry. But today we have a staging and QA teams, staging environments, and we're working on our quality of migration to make our customers happy.
That's awesome. I love it.
I'm curious about two things. So one, how large is the team working on this massive application? And the other is, how long have you been doing this journey of adding DevOps and like modernizing the code base?
About 50 people are participating in the IMAS project directly or indirectly. Our main development team consists of 10 developers plus 2 testers that we have, but the others are indirectly involved in the process, such as our infrastructure team, our web servers team, which have a short-term tasks in the IMAS, and they're not the main players of the IMAS today, but indirectly we have about 50 developers, 50 team members that's working on IMAS. About the time, IMAS from its first edition takes about 8 years, and 8 years ago we produced the first edition of IMAS, and the migration started about 2 years ago. From 2 years ago, we started to include the Azure DevOps in our processes, automating the builds, release, tests, and of course, we included the artifacts in the process. It takes about 2 years for us to integrate the Azure DevOps into our processes.
Awesome. Okay. We did have a question here real quick also before we continue on from Samir, who is asking, so they noticed that you're only using SQL Server, and they're asking whether or not there's no other support for database management systems.
One of the main reasons for using SQL Server is our, of course, let's start from other points. The main reason teams select technologies, one of the main reasons is their human power, is their technology potentials. In our teams, we have very great SQL Server administrators and developers. Okay, why not to use it? Plus, SQL Server today is great package that you can do almost everything with SQL Server, and you do not need any other thing. In the database concern sections, I will talk in detail about the SQL Server and the miracles that takes to us. It's really awesome product from Microsoft. That's why we removed the Oracle. It's not the reason to say Oracle is a bad product. No, the Oracle is awesome too. But we do not have enough human potential. Plus, the technology variance in a team produces the complexity too. So nowadays, using SQL Server resolves our problems and make our development teams and our customers happy. Then that's okay. Why we should make it complex? I think success is in simplicity. Being simple is great.
Awesome. I agree.
Surely in ERP systems that you have faced with large systems, if you do not make your problems simple, surely you will fail.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. And what we are thinking about the future of our migration. I mean, the second step of our migration will migrate from Angular 7 to Angular 11 or using Blazor. These are the things that we are thinking about it. We are doing some research and developments on them, but we might use Angular 11 or Blazor page. Also in the backend, we're trying to totally migrate to .NET 5, and also you try gRPC services too. In database sections, we might use Elasticsearch or Redis or Cosmos DB2 for caching purposes. However, nowadays we are using Elasticsearch for our logs too, but we're thinking about making a broad and great use of Elasticsearch in our operations. These are the things that we are thinking. It's not the decisions that we are made. We're just thinking about these issues and phases. We might someday use them, but currently, no. Currently, we're in the previous stage.
David, was your celebration regarding Blazor on the slide?
No, I was celebrating because there's so many things there. Angular 11, Blazor, TypeScript, .NET 5, which gives you C#9, gRPC, Cosmos DB, all these. These are
all
a bunch
the goodies.
Of a lot of goodies. Yes, so much excitement.
You know, Vahid, I would like to just point out that the developers on your team should count themselves very fortunate to have a very forward-thinking CTO who selects such recent and interesting technologies to work with. So,
absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Of course, I do my best, and I spend many times of my working hours. On research and new technologies, doing research and development, and I think a good CTO should support its team against the future risks. And I do my best. I hope it will produce good results for my team too. Anyway, thank you for your great. Sure. During the development of the IMAS, we also produced two frameworks named Labkhand and Jinget. Labkhand in Persian means, in fact, Labkhand is a Persian word, means smile, and Jinget is a Persian suffix for friend, means your close friend. Labkhand was developed by our former architect, Mr. Zangene, which is developed on top of .NET Framework 4.5 and C# programming language. It has the ability to integrate with connecting with the SQL Server and Oracle databases plus Elasticsearch. It provides the record traceability, request and response logging, and the record versioning, and also it supports connecting to MSMQ, and it's designed using domain-driven design. Nowadays, IMAS, about 60 or 70% of IMAS are using Labkhand as its main framework. But as I told in the previous sections, we are in the migration stage, and we are going to using .NET Core. We have Jinget as our .NET Core framework that's built on top of .NET Core and C# programming language. It supports SQL Server and Oracle, Elasticsearch. We did our best to provide almost everything that were provided by Labkhand previously.
So Jinget is a replacement for Labkhand.
we're trying to replace the LabHand by Jinget with some minor change. For example, we changed the domain-driven design provided by LabHand to CQRS plus domain-driven design to provide better performance to our users. Or we included the health check infrastructure for our APIs, and also we provide infrastructure for dynamic code execution, compilation and execution, which is a brand new feature of Jinget that's we made it about 10 days ago, the dynamic code compilation and execution. The main functionalities that LabHand provides an API section. It's, as I told you, it provides request and response logging, authentication mechanisms, and authorizations mechanisms. It helps us in these processes too. It provides an application service functionalities for cross-domain transactions. In domain service section, it supports us in implementing the business logic and provides a business logic container for it. In the repository section, it supports us by connecting to data store using Answer Framework or ADO.NET. The other side, the Jinget, I'm trying to, okay. The other side is the Jinget. An API section provides the same functionalities as a LabHand, but it replaced the application service section with handler sections. It provides some functionalities for command and query handlers and connection to external services. And also nothing. The other parts are the same as LabHand. We're just changing domain-driven design to CQRS plus domain-driven design in Jinget. That's I will dive into it why we use that. This is a brief introduction of IMAS and our frameworks. If you are agree, we can dive into the code and have some fun with Jinget and take a look at it. Then we'll back to the slides and continue the presentation.
Please.
Yeah, let's do some code.
While we're doing it, so I noticed you move the StreamYard little overlay there. There's a little hide link right on the right of that overlay.
The little bubble you keep moving around,
where it says StreamYard.
There's a hide.
You see where it says hide on the right over there
on the little
on that whatever.
No. The one that says stop sharing. To the right of that there's a hide button right next to it.
Hide. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
Great. Great. Okay. Suppose that we're going to create a new project using the Jinget framework. We had domain sections which we're going to implement our business logics. As you know, in the enterprise applications, specifically in ERP systems, you're facing you're facing with business complexities. So you need to integrate your end users in your team and in a way provide some ways and methods for them to design the main algorithm of the project for you. So the integration of end users in the ERP implementation is a key. It's really key. So we created the domain sections with two different projects, domain and domain services. Domain project will contain our domain models and the data contracts or the behaviors we expect the domain to do. The domain services is a container for our business logic. The handler section have two different projects, command handlers and query handlers. Command handlers for covering the requests that cause altering the data in database, and the query handlers are responsible for our read queries. In infrastructure section, we had the projects for our data connection to database using entity frameworks and our API project. Okay, let's just start from the domain section. I have a model here named the user model. Jinget provides us a class named base entity. In base entity class, if we
Hey, Vahid, can you zoom in your IDE
Yes,
just a little bit for us? Perfect.
Okay, great.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. In base entity class, Jinget provides some base functionalities to our models, such as encapsulating the implementation of the ID property, or it provides some methods for registering or removing events to the domain model, or for setting the value to our ID or the primary key of the model. Beside this base entity class, Jinget also provides the version-based entity and trace-based entities too, for supporting the version-based models and trace-based models. Also, our user model implements the iAggregate root interface. This is a marker interface to identify the aggregate roots in our domain. If we get inside it, as you see, it's an empty interface. We use it as a marker interface to just identify the aggregate roots. In future, we will provide the repository objects only through aggregate roots, and by using this, we'll make the domain only changeable using its aggregate roots.
Now, I'll admit I don't know anything about domain-driven design. Now, is aggregate root, is that a domain-driven design term?
Yeah, it's a domain-driven design term, yes. In domain-driven design, we're trying to divide our program into business domains and then implement that business domains. Of course, in a business domain, we're facing a different kind of models, but some models are weak models, and we cannot change them directly. They should be changed using their parent model. We call that parent model the aggregate roots. So we need a functionality to identify the aggregate roots. For that reason, we use this marker interface named iAggregate root.
Gotcha.
Great. The other parts of our class is a simple model. The point here is the private default constructor for a class, and also having a parametric constructor to prevent building a weak entity. Also, we make the setters of properties protected again to prevent the creating or changing the entity in a way that make it a weak entity. We also have get constant fields, which is used by Jinget. Jinget introduced two functionalities: constant fields and editable fields, which used in the modifications methods. Suppose that we have a model with, I don't know, with 10 properties. Among that 10 properties, we do not want to edit the 2 properties among that 10 properties. Okay, we can set that 2 properties as a constant fields, and that fields will not take a role and will not play any role in our modification scenarios. The other side, if we set the editable fields, we're going to just edit that fields, not the other parts of the model. These are the simple functionalities that Jinget provides us in the domain model sections. In the contract section, it provides us a base domain service interface that gets user model and the primary keys data type as its generic types. The base domain services, if we get into it, provides us some common features and common methods of a model. For example, fetch, all fetch, or creating, or modifying, removing, remove range, and other things.
I just wanted to express my appreciation for the depth of knowledge here with C#. This is someone's even mentioning this. This gets a bit complicated, but that's actually really an advanced C# topic, right? You're using generics here. You have generic constraints. You have some beautiful expression functionality beyond just actions and functions. You actually have expression trees, which is awesome. So this is very well done.
Thank you. Plus the iBase domain service interface. I'm going to add a custom remove method to my interface, I use a domain service. So this very simple domain layer of my application. In domain service, I'm going to implement the contract that we talked about it. User domain service inherits the base domain services and also implement the iUser domain service that we talked about it. Base domain service, same as its interface, iBase domain service. In this stage, it starts to implement that methods. Let's get into it. As you see, for example, let's find the simple method. Okay, for example, exists. It implements the exists, so the other domain services do not need to re-implement the exists in their implementation, except the scenarios that they need a custom exist, so they can implement their own custom exist method. For example, here I'm going to implement my custom create, and I'm going to do some sanity checks before saving the parameter or param to the database. If I remove this line and I ignore the custom actions that I'm going to do, I will have this method, which I can remove it totally and use the inherited method from base domain, which makes my code cleaner and again simple. So let's undo it. Okay. In the command handler sections, we have against contracts and services. Again, in the command handler section, we have iBase application service, same as the iBase domain service layer. It provides some contracts in the command handlers layer for saving, creating, modify, etc. And in the user command handler, I'm going to implement that interface here. My user command handler inherits the base application service, again, like the base domain services. It implements its interfaces methods. Plus, I'm going to implement my own remove method that I introduced it in my interface here. I implement it here, do my remove operations, and then commit the change. One of the roles that command handlers plays for us is the cross-domain transactions. Suppose that I have a scenario, I have a process that starts from A, and then it goes to the stage B, and it should go to the stage C, then to stage D, and finally in this stage it will be finished. It's the end of my process. Okay, suppose that stage 1 completed successfully, B and C completed successfully, but in step B, a failure occurred. Okay, now I have to make a decision, and I have to find a way to roll back the operations done by C, B, and A. A, B, C are my domains, as same as D. One of the ways to roll back them is using the application service or command handler to manage the transaction scope. As you see, I can call various domains here, user domain service, X domain services, and at the end, I commit or roll back my operations. Or the other option is using the compensation transaction that has its own complexities, and we should talk deeply in the other time. Okay, this is our command handler section. We're just doing all our best to make our application as simple as possible. We're not going to show off our technologies or show off our the tools. We're just trying to make everything simple as possible, because we think that as if we take it and keep it simple, we could handle it, we could maintain it.
We did have a question here real quick, Vahid. We have an individual asking to see the class diagram, if that's available.
Yes, of course. I will show it at the end of my, yes, let's talk about the 3 other layers, and then I will show you the class diagram, please. Okay. Okay. The first layer is our query handler section. responsible for our read operations. The query handler sections consist of two different parts: the message section and the handler section. The message is the class and is the model that we're going to send to database or get from database, mainly get from database, because this is our read model. Why I say that we might need to send it to database, because in some queries we might need to set a filter expression, set an order by, set a custom column select from database. In all that scenarios, we can use this query message, and the handlers is responsible for handling our requests. Let's take a look at the message. The message class itself inherits from base ordered message class provided by Jinget. The base ordered message, let's take a look at it. Okay, as you see, provides me two property, order by and paging config properties. Order by used for sorting the output data, and paging config for setting the pagination. Also, the base ordered message itself inherits the base row restriction message class. The base row restriction class provides me the row restriction property used for filtering the queries. So totally, when I inherit from base ordered message, I have access to order by priority, paging config, and row restriction properties. This class also implements the iRequest interface of mediate-R. We use mediate-R for publishing and catching the message. Okay, our model have three properties, and in its constructor, I'm going to set my sort logic, my pagination logic, and also set my filter logics. Then in handler section, I'm going to handle this request. The handlers inherits base select query handler class, which is provided by Jinget and implementing some mechanisms to convert expressions to string queries. It has the handle method that's responsible for translating the expression to the string queries and sending them to the database and getting the results from database and populating the model and returning the model's value. At its constructor, I have a property named set that used for pointing the table or view that I'm going to query against on it. And in handle method, I'm going to handle my request. Before handling my request, I can specify the columns property to select these two columns only. And also I can use the conditions property, which is very similar to row restriction property, but with minor differences. Row restriction used for general filters, and conditions used for the other filters. In the data EF sections, I have my data context, and there isn't any specific point here. My mapping configurations, which is inherited from base mapping configuration. Base mapping configurations provided by Jinget again. Let's take a look at it. It tries to set my ID as the primary key of table and do some other things. For example, I have domain events property in my models. I need to ignore it. I have to be removed property in my models. I have to ignore it prior to sending data to the database. Otherwise, I will get an error from the database. And then I'm going to provide my own implementation of mapping configuration in this class. Then I have my sample unit of work that's all commented out. So we do not need the unit of work class The reason to this is that the Jinget itself implements the unit of works for most of our scenarios. But in case we need some custom things from using unit of work, we can simply define our own unit of work class and inherit from the Jinget unit of work class, and so on. Let's comment it out. And in the API section, which is the complex part of the Jinget, is the API layer, because we need to set up some things prior to start using application. First things we need to set up is in the program.cs file. Jinget provides us logging the request and response to the file, to the database, or to the Elasticsearch, which we can use the log to file or log to database or log to Elasticsearch extension method. All these methods get a blacklist words which we do not want them to be logged. In some cases, we do not want to, for example, we don't want to log the request which contains the Swagger in their URL. Okay, we can simply add the Swagger to blacklist and they will not be logged in the data store anymore. In the startup section, we're going to configure the services. One of the main functionalities Jinget provides here for us is the ability to using the configure Jinget method, which is responsible for discovery and find the dependency dependency requirements for classes. In order to help it find the classes in our layers and in our assemblies, we're going to provide a common discovery variable, and I'm going to say that yes, I have a assembly sample member named user domain service, which is located at this interface. So the Jinget will go to this interface and discover all the dependencies related there. And also in the common handler section, I'm going to introduce it, and Jinget will resolve all the dependencies there for me. For query discovery, the scenario is the same. The DB context settings model, I'm providing it my connection strings. So it will connect my context to the provided connection string. If I use the custom query database, I can use it here, for example, by using these services that add custom DB context or add custom query connection string. Or the other hand, if I'm going to use this CQS method, I mean, I'm going to use the same database for read and write. Jinget will solve this problem for you. It's enough that you provide the connection string. Jinget will change the read and write for you automatically. In the configure sections, we do not have any special things except registering the middlewares, such as our log and response middlewares that are going to register here. We have a principal manager class, which is called by our authorizations attribute. In tonight's example, it will not use, but in our daily basis work, we use principal manager a lot, because every request that comes to the authorizations attribute needs to do some extra words. First of all, it needs to validate the token, and then it validates the user access to the requested resource. As you see, I've just returned true from these two methods, but of course, in a real scenario, we will need to implement our logics for getting to know the token validation and if user has access to the requested resource or not. Okay. The controller or our APIs, suppose that I have three APIs, one for getting data, one for creating, and the other for deleting data from the database. Jinget provides us the base controller class. Base controller forms us the mapper and the query handler for us. So we can use the Jinget mapper and Okay, we can use Jinget Mapper for mapping the models to view models or the view models to models. And also it provides us the query handler, which helps us to publish a message to the appropriate message handler.
I do have a question here, Vahid. If you, and knowing that this is like a user controller,
Okay.
Is there any authentication to prevent this controller endpoint from being accessed?
There's authentications in place, but for simplicity, I've removed them.
Okay.
Yeah, Jinget provides us some things such as claim, such as Jinget claim. Hala is a Persian word, means now. It provides a Jinget claim attribute, which I can provide the claim. For example, to this get method, I can say it's for my ENX subsystem, it's going to get, or it can use the authorized attribute. If I provide this authorized attribute, the authorizations attribute in Jinget will be active for every request and check the access and the other things for us.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I saw users and I was like, oh, wait a second. Where's the authentication happening? I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing that. Thank you.
I've removed it for the case of simplicity, but I can show you it in Jinget itself. That's a good question. Why not to take a look at it? Okay. Let's go on. After loading the Jinget, we'll switch to Jinget 2.
Yeah, and here we're looking at a demo using the Jinget platform, right? So just so it's clear for everyone, like you're just showing how you would use that in your own environment.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes, I can show it to you too. One extra thing here is our mapping entities that map the models to the view models. In our real scenarios that's using the Jinget is our user management systems backend. Let's take a look at it too. Okay, Jinget here. Okay. At the infrastructure section, we have a security layer. For the authorization, we have authorization filter. Oh, the all breakpoints. The authorization filter here. Okay. My system has hanged and I'm at okay.
No, that's fine. So I see what you did.
I'm using ReSharper and it's really burns my system.
Well, and you open up several
solutions.
Yeah, you're streaming. You got several solutions open. No worries whatsoever. We're all developers. We understand. I see what you're doing here. You have a subclass of the authorized attribute. You also specify an authorization filter. That answers my question. That's what I was concerned with. So that's correct.
During this authorization filter, I'm going to call the token valid method, which is implemented in our principal manager sections. That's here. The authorization works. So let's close the Jinget if it lets us, or switch the Jinget UMS. Go on.
And then we did have another question here from one of our viewers. They're asking, how do you handle exceptions?
I closed the Jinget, so let's show it here. The exceptions itself has their own middlewares. I mean, every exception raised in the layers will catch with the middleware and then manage, logged, and then re-forwarded to the caller. We do not suppress the exceptions. We just catch them, log them, and re-forward them to the caller to provide the observability to our developers and development team. Okay.
And that's a design decision that you made here for your system. And I'm curious if any of our attendees have other conceptual ideas around how they would handle their exceptions and their applications. And so feel free to share your thoughts here in chat with that. But continue.
Yeah, that's really welcome. Yeah, that's really welcome. Okay. This is our user management system that's built on top of the Jinget. As you see, it has, again, those sections were talked about: domain handlers, infrastructure, and presentation layer. It has its own APIs, for example, in the user group controller. This is our user group controller, which using the Jinget. As you see, it has authorized attribute here, so our authorization filter will be active for every API call of this class. I inject the query handler mapper to this class and publishing the message here to the message handler, or sending the commands to command handler to satisfy the requirements. In a domain services sections, I'm going to implement the business logics. For example, the user domain sections, I'm going to say how.
Did we lose audio?
I think
How
we
I've
lost
seen-
generated should be created.
Oh, you're breaking up
Okay.
a little bit, Vahid.
Okay, that's all. Seeing strange going to happen. Okay, that's done. Yes, these three points that help us in the development area. I'm getting back to the, yes, great, white space. Okay, let's continue by the presentation. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep. You're back with us now. So, just a little FYI on our time box, Vahid. We're winding down toward the end of the hour, and I know you had a lot of material you wanted to cover. This is all really good stuff. I feel like I'm getting a crash course in domain-driven design here.
Yeah, lots of friendly people here. Sorry to interject. I was just going to say lots of people are really commenting here and saying how well organized and structured this is, and I feel the same as Cam. Like, this has been an awesome crash course on this design process.
Thank you. Okay, because of the time boxing, I'm going to ignore some of my slides and some of my presentation by the lessons we've learned during this road to building the IMAS. One of the most points we've learned in this road is that the customer is God. We're going to provide the functionality for the customers, so we should provide and develop the requirements they said in the best way we can. And also, team members need to talk. The verbal communication between team members are vital for the success. Information is key to success. Simplicity is great. And as Alberto Savoy says, make sure that you are building the right before you build it right. Think, analyze, and then develop. Not develop, then think, and then maintain.
That is a great point, Vahid. So I want to take this up.
Means inconvenience during the presentation.
Oh, I just want to thank you for coming on here and showing us Jinget. So do you have any public information that people can go and find out more about Jinget? Is there someplace we can send folks?
We're going to make the Jinget open source in the near future, but to that time, I can say that my friends can go to the Microsoft.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, no.
Well, Visual Studio, I think, was really chewing up his processor. I was watching it, and I think that's why he started breaking up.
Was it that or ReSharper trying to process all those?
Well, yeah. ReSharper ReSharper is a bit of a resource hog. I love ReSharper. No, not casting aspersions on our friends over there, but we all know it. All right. So, what do we have next week, Dave?
That's a great question. You always put me on the spot.
I'll give you a hint. It's our old friend Steve Smith. Oh, but he's back. Maybe. Oh, the wonders of live television. So
go ahead.
Anyway, so our old friend Steve Smith will be back next week. Our Dallas, he's going to be what was the name of the? Oh, we did lose Vahid. That's right. He's going to present the case for API endpoints instead of controllers. I think he actually said controllers are dinosaurs.
Yes, very much so.
So
that's going to be great. That's going to be a fun one. And
Be a counterpoint to what we saw today. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we would like to again thank our guest Vahid. In absence, Vahid, I hope you're watching still. I know we had some connection problems there at the end. Thank you so much, Vahid, for coming on and sharing Jinget. As folks said, Jinget is going to be open source. You can find Vahid at his Twitter handle, which was @_Jinget. And I know he's also on LinkedIn because he just hit me up there right before the show. So hopefully you can find him. And we'll see everybody next week with Steve Smith. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, friends.